Welcome to Mojo Grip. Mike here. So in general aviation, there are two different types of aircraft, different in terms of design. You have the fixed landing gear aircraft, and then you have retractable landing gear aircraft. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this, a fixed landing gear will look something like this. And what it simply means is that the undercarriage of the airplane, which is your struts, your wheels, your tires, are all permanently part of the airplane, meaning they stay in the same position at every phase of flight. Whereas with the retractable landing gear, you have something like this, where once that aircraft takes up from the ground, you just hit a switch in the cockpit and you see the wheels slowly just disappear. It's the coolest thing in the world, right? But in this video, we're going to talk about the 5 major problems that you can run into if you opt in for retractable landing gear. Retractable landing gears are not just cool to look at, they're also very functional. The reason why retracts were created in the first place is to help reduce drag on the airplane. Okay, and by that, once you have less drag in an airplane, it means the airplane will perform better. Your climb rate will be better, and once you're in cruise, you also have faster speed. But this comes at a cost to the pilot or the owner of that airplane. The number one main problem that you will run into with retract is the cost, and cost at point of purchase. Now, when you compare a retract airplane to a fixed gear airplane, the fixed gear airplane would generally cost less. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to focus more on newer airplanes, not older generation airplanes. With newer model airplanes, if you're buying a retractable landing gear airplane, it will cost you more. It is almost impossible that you will find a fixed landing gear airplane that costs more than a retractable landing gear airplane, except of course you're buying a Cirrus, which again, that's a whole different topic. But generally, if you compare the same model airplane where you have retractable landing gear and you have a fixed landing gear, the retractable landing gear model will cost you more than the fixed landing gear. And the reason being that with the retract, it's basically more parts, another system running on the airplane, and for the manufacturer, it's gonna cost more to install all those things, also the labor cost. So it comes at a cost for the manufacturer, and that cost will be transferred to the owner of the airplane. And while we're still on cost here, the number 2 problem that you can run into with retractable landing gear is your maintenance. Okay, so if you're ready to purchase an airplane, one of the things that you're going to budget for is maintaining that aircraft. Generally speaking, all airplanes will have an annual inspection. Okay, so if you have a fixed landing gear airplane, for example, you have your basic inspection where they check your engine, certain parts of the airplane, and you're good to go. But when maintaining a retractable landing gear, it's another cost. It's another thing that your AP mechanic has to look at. Now, I can't speak on the specific cost of maintenance because there's so many different types of airplanes and models of airplanes out there, but generally speaking, from what I've read and talking to people who's flown both fixed landing gear and retractable landing gear, the general consensus is that when it comes to maintenance, expect your cost to go up to 20% or more. So if you're used to flying a fixed landing gear and you upgrade to retract, you might want to tag in a little bit more cost when it comes to maintenance, 20% or more. The third major problem that you run into with retractable landing gear is your insurance. Okay, this is also a cost. Just like you have insurance on cars, when you own an airplane, you also have to have insurance for it to be flying legally. Okay, now this may be one of your biggest costs, actually, second to the point of purchase price. So when it comes to insurance, your insurance company will look at several things, and the type and model of your airplane being one of them. And when insurance companies see that you have a retractable gear, what that translates to them is that, oh, this is more risk, more parts we have to worry about, more things that can break or damage, which means more costs to fix those things. And so these are the things that your insurance company is going to look at when they're quoting you. And so when an insurance company looks at a fixed landing gear airplane, and compared to a retractable landing gear, again, they worry that with a retractable landing gear, it's an additional system or additional parts that they have to carry, which is a liability for them. And because of that, your premium will go up. Again, there's so many different types of airplanes out there, different models, different year. So the cost will vary based on pilot history, experience, and things like that. But if you're an owner who is moving from a fixed landing gear to a retractable landing gear, you should expect your premium to go up to 50% or more. Ouch. The fourth problem that you may run into with retracts is the fact that that airplane is considered a complex airplane. And what that means is that as a pilot, it means that you're flying a machine that's a little bit more complex than, say, a fixed landing gear. Now, there are different factors that makes an airplane complex, and having a retractable landing gear is just one of them. What this means for you as a pilot is that you just have an additional task that you have to do when flying a retractable landing gear airplane. Now, for the most part, that additional task is simply just hitting a switch in your cockpit, right? But you'd be surprised how many pilots will forget to hit that switch. No matter how experienced you are in flying, no matter how many hours you've logged as a pilot, you still have cases where a pilot forgets to hit that switch, especially when they're coming into land. Here's an example of an aircraft that tried to come into land and the pilot totally forgot to hit the switch and get those wheels down, and guess what? They ended up landing on the belly of that airplane. Now, this is not so common, but it does happen. It just means it's more things that you have to worry about as a pilot. So if you're flying retractable landing gear, just pay attention, especially when you're coming into land. Make sure those wheels are down to absorb the landing of that airplane. And the last problem that you may run into with retractable landing gear is the fact that accidents do happen. More specifically, mechanical failures. So when you think of an airplane, just in general, fixed or retractable, things can happen. Things can happen in flight. You can have an electrical problem or you can have a mechanical problem. Again, just like your insurance company thinks of these things, you as a pilot also have to think of these things. When you're flying a retractable landing gear, you have an additional system, additional moving parts that you have to be concerned about as a pilot, because there have been cases where something goes wrong and you hit that switch to get your wheels down and they don't work. It could be some electrical issue or something with the parts that they're just not working right. And you've had situations where pilots tried to come into land and their retractable landing gear was not working and they had to have a forced landing, or they had to crash land that airplane. So again, as a pilot and as an owner of a retractable landing gear airplane, you have to have this in the back of your mind that this is something that could happen. But again, that's why you make sure that airplane is always inspected, always maintained to the fullest capacity, and make sure that it's in airworthy condition for you to fly it safe all the time. But nevertheless, it's something that you will have to worry about when you're flying a retractable landing gear airplane. Now, all that said, guys, most people who opt in for the retractable landing gear airplane, they don't think about the costs. Aviation is expensive as it is. So for people who have the opportunity or who are blessed enough to own their own aircraft, they know that it's going to cost them some money. And so when they go for retractable landing gear, it's usually based on their mission and how fast they want to go or how much performance they want out of that airplane. Other than the last factor, which is more of a safety issue of an engine failure or a mechanical failure, most pilots and owners who opt in for the retractable landing gear do it because that's just their preference. I personally would choose a retractable landing gear just because of the cool factor. Just having those wheels disappear, it's amazing. And the fact that you get better performance and better speed, to me, is enough argument to go for a retractable landing gear. At the end of the day, it's all going to be personal preference. And for me personally, I love the look and finish of a retractable landing gear. And if I had the opportunity to buy an airplane today, I probably will go for a retractable landing gear. So I hope you guys learned something from this very short and sweet video. If you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, go ahead and do so. Again, my name is Mike. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.